See the sugarcane farm? It's wrong. Stop building it because it's wrong. Mysticat sugarcane farm? A classic, but wrong. Waddles, I love you. I'm going to rip my Tesla coils out. This is not the best easy compact sugarcane farm. Java, Bedrock, wrong on both. Let's have a little chat. This is the popular sugarcane farm design, and it is a massive waste of sugarcane. Let's talk about how it works. So, as soon as sugarcane grows 3 high, it knocks it down. This is really bad, and the reason it's really bad is because of the way sugarcane grows. Sugarcane grows whenever a random game tick is applied 16 times. As soon as there are 16 random game ticks, it'll grow up to the next height. And then as soon as there are more, it will grow to the next height. So over here, you don't have to take my word for it, you can actually look. So look in the top right corner of my screen, this one has an age of 15 right here. This one has an age of 2. This one has an age of 1. You see those numbers? This one has an age of 0. This one has an age of 1. There's a couple over here that are about to grow. This one's got an age of 12. This one's got an age of 10. This one's got an age of 13 right here. So what happens when that 13 gets to 16? Well, those 10 game ticks or 12 game ticks, and believe me, there'll be more than that by the time it gets there, are going to be thrown in the garbage. You're going to throw most of a piece of a sugarcane in the garbage for every single one of those that's grown 2 blocks high. So when we do this, we just destroyed half a sugarcane piece on each one. We should be making a simple sugarcane farm maximally efficient per piece of sugarcane. And I think I know why nobody's done this until now. It's because they think that there's no way around this problem. So there's a problem, which is that if we sit here and try to make a perfect farm that's only 2 high, we're going to end up doing something like this, where we end up causing an infinite loop. So if I were to do this on a 2 high, it's going to do that. We don't want it to do that. And a lot of designs are just going to do this, but maybe a little bit slower. And so we have to find a way around that. So here's proof that we can get around that. Right here, I have an observer that's being pushed and pulled. This only works in Java, but I'll have a Bedrock Edition one in a minute. But this is just proof that we can actually do this. So when we have this grow, it's going to push it and then pull it, and that gives us the ability to not have a problem anymore. Now, there's a couple downsides to this. One is that because we're using this redstone dust, you can get some weird behavior if it's longer than 15, so you have to cut in gaps to it, and that can affect the overall performance per size. So I've done some comparisons, and this is indeed faster. And so if we come over here, I've got the statistics. This one is anywhere from, on my spreadsheet, anywhere from 9% to 45% faster. I found about an average of 18% more coming from it, but it works way faster the first hour. That's one of the biggest advantages, is you have to wait for it to start growing up from the very bottom on this, so you're not going to get very much from during the first time period. But if you want some quickly, this one performs way better the first hour that it's running. I knew we could do better, so I came up with this sane design. So this design is not flipped inside out like the other one. This one only uses 2 pieces of redstone dust, and it's only 3 wide behind the sugarcane instead of 4 wide behind the sugarcane like this one. So right here you can see it functions exactly the same. We're going to push and pull this observer, and it's going to, whenever we push and pull it, send a signal to trigger this. So it still suffers from the same problem of having to have gaps every 15 blocks, but I found that it's just as efficient or better, anywhere from 11 to 45%. There's less redstone dust, but it still requires some, and I wanted to solve that problem so that we didn't have to have any redstone dust involved. This was initially my final design for Java Edition. I really like this design. I solved the problem of needing redstone dust, and now we can do this and it will just work. Now we don't have to have any redstone dust. It's even more compact, it's only 2 blocks wide. And so as you can see, it's a lot more like the easiest design, and it doesn't have any redstone dust at all. We can have it compact, it doesn't have to have any gaps, and I saw that some of the performance, it was almost 59% faster on one run. And so that's absolutely incredible. And so I'm eventually going to do a tutorial on how to build this one, but let's talk about the one for Bedrock, because it also works for Java. So I went ahead, got Bedrock, and I learned to use Bedrock, and I went and designed one that works in both. And so this is almost as efficient, and it's actually a little bit cheaper to build, because you don't need, other than a trip to the nether and some redstone, you don't need slime blocks for these pistons. And so what you can do instead is you can rig an observer chain like this. And so we're just going to have an observer facing like this.
And this does suffer from the same problem that the first one does, which is that it has a really slow uptime, but the performance is almost identical. So what you would do to build it is you would do a chain like this, and then you would look at that one, and then you would look at that one, and you'd put a block on like that. And then it'll break the same way. And so when it grows, and it does fire a second time, but that's okay. And it works in Bedrock. So now let's look at the numbers. So for numbers, we've got some impressive ones. So this is my baseline, and I ran it for multiple hours, not sped up, on a typical normal performance AFK. Use a stopwatch. And so the classic design here was making anywhere from 143 to 208 every hour. The first hour is really slow. It only made about 120 something. But after that, it averages about 175 an hour. And so this is kind of what you're looking at. I have random game tick stock, so time is frozen on these. And this is kind of the footprint, is it's going to be 3 wide for one section, and they do combine to be only about 5 wide, but as we're going to see, some of these optimized designs are not going to take up too much more space. So my first one was obviously the worst one in terms of how much it took to build. It takes a lot of, you need 5 pieces of redstone for every single section. And it's really ugly, and it's inside out, and it's really wide. And so this one actually proved it to be more efficient. It turned out to be 18-19% more efficient, and on average, it's making about 207. And that first hour, it made 185 instead of this one that made 128. So we're getting a substantial amount more in the beginning. So, and that makes perfect sense. You would expect that because way over here, we're having to wait for these to grow up to be 2 high and then 3 high. Whereas from the beginning, this one, as soon as they grow too high, it's harvesting them. And so it doesn't have a slow first hour uptime like the other one does. And so this one needs a lot of sticky pistons. It does use a lot of redstone dust, and we're limited to that 15 a row. And this one turns out to be about the same performance. So these are some of the ranges and some of the calculations I've had, but first hour about in the 180s, and then average was about 208. And so still only that 15 per row. We're limited to it. But this one was a little bit more sane, and it didn't use nearly as much redstone dust. We only had to have the 2 instead of having to have 5 redstone dust for each thing. So on to the final 2 designs, and these are the ones I recommend you build. They're very simple, and this is my ideal Java design. Now this one's almost 30%. You know what that means? It means that in the time that it takes to, so let's say it's an extra third, 50% would be in the time it takes for the other one to grow 2, it would grow a third one. It's almost that efficient. In the time it took to do the other one, this one had almost 2 stacks. In the time it took this one to get 6 or 7, this one got in the 50s. And so you can see on both sides, 50 and 49. And so this one's considerably more fast. It's not twice as fast, but it's enough to make a difference, and you should definitely consider building it. So this is the best output. It doesn't have any redstone dust. It does use some redstone, or it does use some sticky pistons, I mean. But other than that, it's not too expensive to build. And this has by far been the most efficient. The output is really consistent too. The range, it actually, I think on my spreadsheet, I had 225, 226, 227, 228. Like it was like 1 apart on all the test runs. So you can have a really reliable amount of redstone to know how much, or sugarcane, you know how much you're going to be producing every hour. I really enjoy this sign, and I'm going to do a video, I'll put a link in the description, on how to build this one. So the other one is for Bedrock users. So for Bedrock users, none of those are going to work because of the way that timings on pistons and observers work. But this one I built in Bedrock, and it does work. And so this one is almost tied with that other one for the highest. Because it takes a little bit more of a delay for it to go through, it is just a hair slower, but on average we're getting about 29%, 28, 29%. And so it's just a little bit less efficient on average, but they're almost identical in performance. And this one is going to need a bit more quartz for these and some redstone dust, but it's not going to need the slime blocks. So if you don't have access to slime, a trip to the nether to get yourself some quartz and some redstone dust is all you're going to need to get started on this one. Full disclosure, I've actually built this one in my survival world. So I've actually used this, and I can attest to it. It's definitely worth it. And so this one, I'm going to also show a video in the description, but I'm curious what you think. I know there's a lot of sugarcane videos out there about this topic, and they do a lot of designs like with slime blocks moving across to cut them off. But I really feel like this is a better way to do it. So this one is a little bit less consistent. It works just like the first one, but the difference is, again, it's only going to knock off one. So it's not going to interfere with the others. And so this build, while it does have the slow startup time, so the first hour was really slow. So we had about 144. And so if we compare that over to the other one over here, but we were averaging in the 220s, I think it was on this one. Yeah, so 140s. It was fairly slow, but I've noticed that it's pretty good, and it doesn't suffer from the losses that the classic one does. So we're not throwing away that extra sugarcane. And so that's all I got for this video. The how to build it is going to be linked in the description for both of these. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope this adds to the community because I haven't seen anything like this. And I don't want to see any more sugarcane wasted. So again, have a good rest of your day. Bye.